each time I come to this practice of stilling myself, of tuning inwards, I find resistance. I notice the juggler of all the mental balls that are in the air. There's part of me that's grasping to control, that has an agenda. But as I take the time and I have the patience to settle, to listen, I don't experience a dropping of the things that are important. I have a trust and a feeling that comes in that they'll be right where I need them when I look for them again. That only the things that distract me from being able to maintain that juggling act, that creative act of living, of being in the world, that the atmosphere that those objects are floating in is now clearer. My dexterity is improved. I have an intuition about where those balls are in the air. Almost as if now I could juggle with my eyes closed. Like I'm tapping into some kind of Jedi force. It seems odd that it should take so long to come to this understanding that one should have to be this far along in life, and having traveled such a bumpy road, before really fully grasping the importance of finding that peace and that stillness. I've long known the benefit of meditation, but I think I used it almost like a Band-Aid. It certainly has helped me all along. But perhaps I didn't understand the necessity of it until it's all that I had left. That seems like a dramatic statement. But these past few years, I've anticipated that place of desolation, of complete loss. It didn't completely manifest in the world where I was homeless or without money, but mentally and emotionally I was there. And it was in those darkest moments that I did find the power of my own mind, my own consciousness. When out of utter desperation and dread, I had to focus intently. I had to meditate on the glimmer of hope that I had. I found that I could find light in the darkness when I looked for it. I couldn't find it in the world, but I could find it within myself. I think this was me finding my real, true self. Now, that's the quest that I'm on, is to maintain that connection with that true self, that deep inner being. That's connected with everything that I want. All of the good feelings, all the productive thoughts, the peace, the love, the joy that I couldn't find in the world. I couldn't find it in myself either until I had to. Out of utter desperation. And this was not just a single moment, this was a prolonged period. And now it's something that is intrinsic to who I am, is understanding the necessity of that dark night of the soul, of that transformation that often comes through loss and pain. I don't know if this is a requirement, but it's the path that I took. And it's not one that I will soon forget. Instead, I intend to embrace the pain, the hardship, the loss that seems fundamental to human life. Our society says, avoid these things are bad. Swim as hard as you can to avoid these things. If you experience pain and suffering and loss, there's probably something wrong with you, is what our society would suggest. But I think that, in fact, these things occur in someone's life when they're truly ready to evolve. When they're ready to experience a kind of success that this world does not readily understand. A success that is about transcending the limits of human society, the human-made world. about true freedom and true power. I think this is what has been recorded in myths and stories for a long time. But we've stopped telling these stories. It seems our culture has forgotten its roots. Of course, not everyone, but our mainstream culture seems to be devoid of these rich narratives in exchange for very cheap, sensational versions. But these stories are inescapable. We will live them out whether we're conscious of it or not. The true initiation comes from understanding and accepting the process. We won't gain the nourishment of them if we remain unconscious. The whole point of them is to wake us up to the nature of reality, which includes passing through these doorways of initiation. I believe that our whole human world, and maybe the entire planet itself, is passing through one of these doorways right now. We're going through a collective dark night of the soul and initiation. And there's only a portion of the population that really understand it. And are able to navigate it with wisdom. I myself have gotten caught up in the fear of it. As it went hand in hand with my personal dark night of the soul. And again, maybe that is normal because the world does reflect our inner world. And we do have this tendency to have this cognitive bias where we see correspondences, we see patterns that reflect our own minds. So if we're going through tribulation and hardship, we'll see that in the world. I really believe that the way that we pass through that initiation and benefit from it is in embracing these shadowy, dark, scary, painful, fearful things and accepting that they are also within us. There are parts of us that, given the power, we might abuse as well. There's a part of us that stays small, that would prefer to be the victim than the bad guy, than the perpetrator. And yet that perpetrator does exist within us. Some part of us believes that if we had the power, we might abuse it. So we avoid claiming that power, that authority. We've come across people in our lives who abuse their power and their authority, and we don't want to be like them. So we erroneously associate power and authority with harm. But we can't truly be powerful if we don't have the capacity to also harm. And there's two ways to learn. There is working it out in the world, in the manifest world. And then there's working with it inside of ourselves, with the archetypes, through visualization, through art, through creative expression. We can work through these thoughts and these feelings in a harm reduction kind of approach. I think inevitably, as we're doing that, we'll start to wield more power, and we'll be tested. How well did we integrate it in a conscious, conscientious, compassionate way? Are we able to wield that weaponry decisively? Why do we even want power? I realized just in part of my dark night of the soul, just before it happened, when I achieved what felt like great power, I became aware of how much bitterness was inside of me, how much vengeance and anger was inside of me. And as I became powerful, those emotions showed me what kind of monster I could become. And I believe these past 5 years have been about working out those painful feelings that would cause me to want to be vengeful, hateful, murderous. They came from a place of feeling hurt by others, feeling victimized, but the realization that I was perpetuating these things. I was holding on to them. I had given my power to those who harmed me. And in doing so was perpetuating those feelings of victimhood. But in that moment of finding the light and the peace and the power within myself, the focus, I realized I could take back my power and not give it to them any longer. That I could let go of the old stories. And I could let go of my habitual response, my habitual thoughts. I could start fresh with my self-definition. That in actuality, I was free. To me now, this is what is of utmost importance, is remembering my creative power, the fundamental freedom that I have in focusing my mind, directing my thoughts, incrementally laying a groundwork for the life that I choose to live each day, being the person that I choose to be, not based on the narrative of the world, not based on history, not based on anyone else's definitions. I get to decide what's real for me. I'm happy to dialogue and converse and negotiate with people regarding our individual relationship. And that's a context building. That is a co-creating of a shared world. But if I don't know myself, I don't know what I can give. I don't know what I can bring to that shared world. So knowing myself is of utmost importance. And this self-awareness is not easily put into words. This deep awareness of ourself is something that is emergent and fluid, beyond labels, beyond rigid structures of any kind. It's known when our heart becomes peaceful, when our mind becomes clear. It comes into the world when we create space for it. It doesn't rush. It's not grasping. It's not trying to prove itself. It's quite innocent and joyful and surprising. It's youthful. It's alive. It's ecstatic. It's everything that the human world isn't. And the beautiful and good things about the human world come from it. That inner being, that inner resourcefulness is what gives the world its life. In some people, it's just the faintest little drip, a faint whisper. And in others, it pours forth. Something that is relevant for me is a forgiveness for those who are struggling to allow this beingness to come forth. And because they're so out of touch with it, their life feels devoid of life, of joy, of freshness, of vitality. I think I've always been acutely aware of when I'm cut off from it. And that happens when I give more validity and more attention to the conditionality of the world, of the seeming authorities saying you must jump through these hoops before you can have what you want, before you can connect with a feeling of satisfaction, joy, peace, love. The world says you must behave, you must perform in a certain way. And the times when I believe that, we get conditioned to behave from an early age, and we give up our inner authority. And in doing so, we lose our connection with ourselves, with everything good. We cut off that supply. And as I say, that's always meant for me tremendous suffering. I've always felt that quite acutely, and felt this terrible injustice, and felt rage, felt anger and frustration about that, felt the world was terribly unfair. And yet still I bought into it, that somehow it had the power to cut me off from myself. Not that I knew clearly that's exactly what was happening. It was more an intuitive, instinctual awareness. But it was still a kind of childlike approach to the problem. Whereas now I feel a mature adult approach, where I'm consciously addressing it. I'm consciously taking back the power, reestablishing the authority within myself. Intellectually delegitimizing the so-called authorities of the world, dismantling their hold on my mind, Some people might consider this a kind of rewilding of the mind. I think the actual process is not an analytical one. It's more an immersion. It's like spending time in nature, spending time in introspection, spending time doing art, spending time meditating, dancing, getting in touch with those deeper parts of ourself, where those wise teachers dwell. In doing so, we heal the fragmentation. And then we can look at the world in a way that's not so threatening. We know we have the power to decide what's what. We have the power to decide how we choose to respond to the conditions. We refuse to be manipulated by the carrot and the stick. That inner resourcefulness is not pinched off. But I do recognize that still I have this dislike of those who are pinched off and would try to drag me into their games of manipulation. I recognize I still have work to do in releasing the world. There's a part of me that still believes they have some power. I still have some resentment and some bitterness towards those who would try and steal my power and my authority. When I truly look at it, I know that's ridiculous. I know that it's not true. They do not have the power to do that. It's only with my consent that such a thing can happen. Seems to me the most important thing that we can achieve in this life is reclaiming, it's owning that self-authority where we are certain of our ability to focus in a way, to focus our mind and our thoughts in a way that recognizes our authorship of our personal world, and that our personal world is the world that we live in. We are the main character of our own story. Are we writing our story, or are we letting other people write it? It's a narrative that we're regurgitating, a reactionary story, or is it a satisfying one? Is it an adventure of self-discovery, of playfulness, of creativity? Or of fighting the world? I think for a long time mine was about being in opposition to the world, of trying to justify my feelings and to have those be recognized by others. And that was very frustrating, because the people that I had placed in the highest authority in my life did not recognize my feelings and my perspective, my uniqueness. And yet I wanted them to, desperately. But the more that I tried, the more resistance that I experienced. It's only ever been in those times when I came back to myself and recognized my own values and affirmed them, really recognized that maybe nobody else will really get me. But there is a satisfaction in getting myself, in being present with what is, what I am in the moment. Light, dark, happy, sad. That I can find a deep sense of meaning in that self-awareness, in that being with myself. There's a confidence and a reclaiming that happens. And that then when I am in the world and confronted with others, who are like broken robots, that I can have a mixture of compassion and humor without an obligation to fix them or accommodate them. They're on their own journey. They're in their own world. And many of them don't even speak the same language as me. I can trust my own intuition about how to interact with them. There's not one way. There's not a right way. There's my way. And that's perfectly fine. And my way is beyond labels. My way is alive. My way is honoring myself, my authenticity, my integrity. My presence and my beingness. And I don't have to explain that to anyone. If I'm inspired, I can enjoy doing so, knowing that it's just a playful expression. It's highly unlikely that somebody will fully understand that. And I can let go of that. I don't need them to understand me because I understand me, at least to the depth that it's possible. I'm a mystery. I'm eternally evolving, unfolding, flowing beingness. And that's powerful because it's unlimited. It's powerful because I know that that's who I am. It's powerful because nobody's hooks are in me. It's powerful because I'm beyond manipulation. As long as I stay connected with that source within me, I don't need anyone else's validation. I don't need anybody else's resources. I find everything I need within. And as I do, I find the expression of that in the world. I find the reflection of that in the world. So the task is to maintain this practice of not being pulled outside of myself, of staying anchored within, of practicing coming back to that rootedness within, and allowing that to pour forth into the world, and to enjoy that pouring forth into the world in whatever direction I choose, whatever direction I find joyful. I can even find joy in expressing my shadow, in playing with those dark elements. I can find joy in telling somebody to fuck off. I can find joy in being my authentic self.